Welcome to everybody who's turned up here. I'm Nick Johnston, Secretary of the 1st and Malton Constituency Labour Party. As all of us know, we've been campaigning against fracking here for the last 4 years or more. We're delighted that 2 years ago the Labour Party adopted a policy of banning fracking, and the ultimate solution for us is to get a Labour government. And
yes,
meanwhile, the campaigning goes on, and we're delighted that senior people in the Labour Party are now getting involved in the campaigning. And we've had some, there was a high-profile visit from Jeremy Corbyn just a couple of weeks ago that got in the news, where we got the statement. I am against fracking, the Labour Party is against fracking, which is what we want to hear. And we're delighted to have Hugo Fearnley here today, who's the candidate selected for Scarborough, prospective candidate, I suppose I should say, for Scarborough and Whitby constituency. And he's here because part of his campaign will be on fracking. Can I hand over to you, Hugo?
Thanks again to Mick and everybody in the Thurston Malton Labour Party and everyone who's worked on this campaign over the years. I want to also offer my thanks for coming out. At least it's not raining and it's a beautiful afternoon, so it could be worse. But I know it was short notice and a bit hastily arranged, so I really want to show my appreciation for you coming out. I'm sure some of you have travelled quite far. When it comes to fracking, I was here probably nearly a year ago when I joined in the demonstration when they were sort of still trying to get the fracking going here on this site. And I remember giving a short speech then, and much of it still rings true at this point. And I think when I thought about coming to the site, I thought, oh well, there's nothing going on here, so we don't really, we don't really need to mobilise anymore. We've kind of sent them packing. But as you'll all be aware, some 85 miles in that direction, that is not the case. And we've got the fracking happening there with the obvious impacts being seen in terms of the minor tremors that are happening as soon as they start fracking. This is a clear indication that what the fracking companies are trying to do is having a negative effect on the environment. Now, we don't need to go over the well-rehearsed environmental arguments. We're all here because we know about those. But what I want to just mention briefly is the other aspects of this industry that maybe don't get as much attention. Obviously it's about the environment, but it's also about our democracy as well. And I think the way that this industry has been sort of treated by this government, this preferential treatment, and allowed them to sort of ride roughshod over our local government processes, over public opinion. It's something, I read the other day, it was something as low as 20% in favour of fracking in this country. Can you think of any other policy, any other area where we have this low support in the population in general? It's absurd that we should still be contemplating this destructive industry as part of our economy. So that's one thing. I think we have to remind ourselves of the real negative impact that this industry is having on our local democracy. The other thing is also, in a context where our public services are stretched to the limit, where our police is stretched to the limit, they're actually pulling possibly police off detective work to come and police fracking sites where there are slightly older ladies and gentlemen sitting, drinking tea and making the most of their democratic right to peacefully protest. They're pulling people off real police work to kettle people who are peacefully protesting. This is another thing that has to be highlighted because we just saw in the budget just now, no more money for the police, not a single penny. No more police funds made available. So there's a huge element outside of the environmental impacts that we have to keep reminding people about. And I think I pulled out this quote because I think it still rings true, even though it was said many, many decades ago by one of my heroes. It was said by the great Clement Attlee. But if you'll just bear with me. So this was said in the post-war period, and a lot of you will know about the huge impact that post-war government had on shaping this country in so many ways. And Clement Attlee said this, I quote, "A new start is being made under new conditions. We must look ahead to the future and not be forever casting lingering glances back to a past which cannot be recaptured. We have to set about reconditioning the fabric of the economic life of the nation in order that our economic resources can be fully utilised in the common interest. We cannot afford to have ill-managed, ill-equipped, unprogressive industries. It is our policy that the industries and services of this country shall make their maximum contribution to the public good." So that was Clement Attlee in 1945, but if Clem was alive today, he could well have been speaking about the fracking industry. So I just want to leave you with those words. We really need to have progressive industries, progressive, responsible industries that look after the planet, look after our democracy, look after our public services, and fracking is not one of them. And I'm very, very proud to be standing as a Labour candidate for a party that will bring in a complete ban on fracking. Thank you. So, I would also now like to introduce a very special guest who would have been here earlier had it not been for Chris Grayling. So I'm sure John will give Chris a flea in his ear when he gets back down to Parliament about standing around in York Station. But yeah, Jon Trickett, he doesn't need any introduction. All there is to say, because I'm really, really pleased that he's come up on Halloween, is that we now have a Trickett treat.
Very good.
I couldn't believe my luck when he said, Jon Trickett's coming on the 31st. Yeah, I mean, John needs no introduction. He's been around the Labour Party and a stalwart of the movement and a stalwart of the left for many, many years. Strong supporter of Corbyn, used to be Leeds City Council leader, and he is also someone who's very keen to make sure that fracking does not get a foothold in this country. So, Jon Trickett.
Thank you very much. And it's great to be alongside such a fantastic candidate who we hope to see in Parliament shortly. Can I thank all of you for coming? It's really much appreciated. And I'm sorry we kept you waiting, but it was the railway service. I think we will probably have to come up with a policy of nationalising it. I didn't half expect the trick it or treat joke. It's not the first time it's ever been said. And look, you fought a great campaign, but the communities that you represent and you live in still hang under a cloud, because we know that the planning consent remains, even though you've driven away the company that was about to do the fracking here. But here's the worries. That company, I understand, is now going to be sold on to a larger company, and clearly the planning consent still is in place, and therefore we have to fear that we haven't yet seen this off completely. And we know what happens in a capitalist society. One firm gets sold on to another and on to another, and quite usually it can be the case that the community is the last organisation or body of individuals to be consulted. And that's what we have with fracking. We know the arguments about fracking, I think. The effect on the local roads, the effect on the atmosphere in the area, the noise, the general pollution, the water courses which can be damaged, and as you've just said, Hugo, the earth tremors. And what's happening, it's only a few days, I think the 15th of October they started near Preston. So it's only a few days, 16 days ago. Look, almost every single day there have been tremors. And the earth tremors which have taken place are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The last one the other day, I think, was 1.1 or 1.2 on the Richter scale. It's not what we want. It's not what we want. And so there are a whole series of local arguments about the nature of the communities which are going to be affected if they press ahead with this site here. But there's a bigger argument still. There's a kind of, what kind of planet do we want to have? And what kind of planet do we want to leave to our children? And I've got 8 grandchildren now. And the fact of the matter is, the Tories closed all the coal mines, which is my area, the area I represent, partly because, well, they wanted to destroy the industry and destroy a union. But an argument was made about saving the planet. Not that I think the Tories give a damn about saving the planet, actually. They want to let the planet burn. But how can you argue that we shouldn't go back to coal because we don't want to continue to cause global warming on the one hand, but on the other then say we're going to start burning new sources of gas, because that will also impact the planet. So Labour is clear. It's absolutely crystal clear. We will end fracking in this country as soon as we're elected. And I can give you that assurance, A, because Jeremy was talking to me, he'd been here and discussed it with me. But Jeremy's asked me to be in charge of preparing the first few days, the first few weeks, the first 100 days, the first year of the next Labour government. And I can tell you, it is in the programme. We have a grid. We have a grid which shows what we intend to do every day if we can get ourselves into office. And in that grid it says an end to fracking. Right. And so I can give you that absolute guarantee. Let me just leave you with one final thought then. This government is under the thumb of big business. To the extent I feel you can say you have a state which belongs to the corporations, yes, the richest people in our country. And what they do all of the time is to work in the interests of the biggest businesses, corporate interests, and the richest 1,000 or few thousand people. It's a corporate state that they're running. And therefore, when we said we want to build a country which works for the many and not the few, remember our manifesto from only last year, what we had in mind is not only what will a Labour government look like, but also what divides us from the Tories. Because what you have at the moment is a government of the few, by the few, for the few. The richest people and the biggest corporations in our country are kind of a ruling class. That's the Tory government. And fracking is a part of that whole package. We need to break away from that. And I think the country is dying out for change now. Final point. How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Well, let me tell you how we're going to do it. You are going to do it by putting him into Parliament to stand alongside me and Jeremy and all the rest to build a Labour majority, get rid of them, and let's build a new and different kind of country where this kind of horrendous possibility is removed once and from all from England's green and present land. And thank you very much for coming along just now.
Yeah. Did anyone have any particular questions that they wanted to aim to me or John or Mick while we're here? If anyone has, or if not,
I'll hang around if anybody.
Yeah.
They always talk about fracking as being a bridging fuel. We know that that's lies and that they're stealing from us.
Yep.
What the other thing they've been stealing from us is support for renewables.
Yep.
And if you want a bridging fuel, you want what that bridge is going to. So there's a entirely contradictory message,
Yep.
as we know. What's Labour going to do to restore the direction that we were previously going in and bring more renewables on board?
Okay. Well, I was a very close friend of Ed Muddybound, and I worked with him a little bit when he was the Secretary of State working on the environment. And I can tell you, and John Prescott I know very well. Labour's got a good record of fighting on these things. You can always do more, and we probably should have done more. But let's not dismiss what we managed to achieve. But when you saw fires burning spontaneously this summer north of the Arctic Circle, you've got to say this planet is facing a potential cataclysm. We cannot go on in the same old way, and that's why this is just a ludicrous proposal made to make a few corporations even richer than they already are. Labour has said that we will move to a situation where we have 60% of all our energy produced by renewables by 2030. Now that's a big task, and it will create, I think, 400,000 jobs, because we know, especially in this area, low wages, seasonal work is a big problem, so we need to regenerate the economy as well. Building a green economy is good for the planet, it's also good economics. We're determined to bring it out into the, determined to bring all this out into the regions, and there are so many brilliant engineers in Yorkshire and the north of England generally. Absolutely, they can be developing new technologies. Final point on that. In China, I think it's right to say they're opening one coal-fired power station every week. But if we can develop the technology, our workforce, our brilliant engineers, why wouldn't you try to sell that to the rest of the world? Because this is a planet-wide problem. So hopefully that's an indication of where we're going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Paul Andrews. I'm Mayor of Milton, and I've managed to succeed in raising funds to take legal action against the Secretary of State.
I saw it in the papers, and well done.
My concern as Mayor, my primary concern as Mayor, is to protect local residents.
Yep.
We have a situation where what is proposed would result in one surface structure, namely a drilling pad, each 2 hectares in size, every 1.5 to 2 miles in every direction. And this is clear from the North Yorkshire plan. Whereas I fully understand the need to protect the environment, do you understand the need to protect local people, to prevent this area from being industrialised, and on that basis, that this itself is a political issue,
Of course.
which is likely to get the attention of people living in rural areas, whereas I know that Labour tends to concentrate on the city-urban areas.
Okay. Well, first of all, can I salute the work you do and your courage and steadfastness in fighting for the community that you represent. And I think you should be very proud of what you're doing, and you're doing the right thing by the community and the people who vote for you. So well done and thank you. It has been said that Labour is a party of the big cities. It's not actually true. I represent 23 villages. And I grew up in Leeds. I was the leader of Leeds City Council, one of the greatest cities, the greatest city in the north of England. That's very right. I've already met somebody who worked for me when I was a leader. Hi. Yeah, the greatest city. We've just won Channel 4 to come to Leeds this afternoon, so that's good news. But let's be clear. The Conservatives have lost interest in the county districts, the market towns, the seaside towns, the rural areas. They've become preoccupied with the big cities. And I just think that's a profound mistake, because where is England? England is partly in the big cities, but it's equally in areas like this. Now, I'll tell you, I represent 23 villages. The village I live in is the largest village in England. There are now 2 fields left between us and Pontefract. And those 2 fields are quite important for our identity. We don't want to lose our singular identity. It's a Quaker village. And by the way, we backed Parliament, and Pontefract backed the Crown all those hundreds of years ago. So there's a difference between us and Pontefract. But we're not against Pontefract. But yeah, so I fully understand. We are sensitive to that, and I particularly remember I'm preparing Labour for government if we can manage to get into office. I am particularly sensitive to the needs of the market towns of the county districts. People like you, I understand you're an independently minded person, and I admire for what you're doing. We've got to listen to the people, such as yourself and others, and to build a country which embraces every part of the country and not just the big cities. So yeah, I'm very conscious of it. And one more, oh, there's two more.
Sorry, Kim, you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's getting really fun. Is it on? We were really lucky on Saturday afternoon. There was some fascist march through Scarborough, and we were lucky enough to have Hugo speak at the counter rally. And the reason I'm mentioning that this afternoon is because what happened after that is that we had about 30 people join the Facebook group for Stand Up to Racism, which shows actually when the Labour leadership in an area or nationally actually gets involved on the kind of demonstration side, you know, the protesting and so on, it makes a massive difference to the movement. Not everybody in Frack Free Scarborough votes Labour, but I would say probably everybody in Frack Free Scarborough wants the Tories out, at the very least, and therefore, you know, very, very happy actually to promote, you know, what the Labour Party is doing to fight fracking. And I guess my message is, would you pass that on? That small story about what happened after the fascists came, Hugo spoke, it grew the movement. The same would be true for fracking. You being here today makes a massive difference. Pass it on. It's great that Jeremy, you know, Jeremy should come out. We need him out more. Jeremy, Jon, all the rest of those guys at the front of the marches, if you could ask them.
Hi, I'll be quick, because some of us are used to being cold standing. I live here in Kirby Misperton. Before I retired, I was, amongst other things, chair of the county police chaplaincy for the Kent Police. I then find myself living here and having to confront the North Yorkshire police over this issue. And in my view, the introduction of police and crime commissioners has politicised police priorities. And I'm just wondering if Labour has any thoughts about whether we keep that or go to something democratic in a different way, because the point that Hugo made about the misuse of police resources is so disproportionate. We've had 100 police vehicles a day through our village street, just to monitor some of us who, as you say, are getting on a bit in years. But I wonder if there's a politicising of the police that needs to be addressed.
Under transparency.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not quite sure, Leo, off the top of your head, do you know about what we said about the police commissioners?
Well, we were always against them, but
We were against them, and we voted against them. We did feel it was a waste of money, but the thing was, once they were established, we felt as if we had to put candidates up, otherwise it would have left the ground clear. But I'll take back the message, and I'll speak to Diane Abbott, who's in charge of the policing matters, and see what she says. More generally, my feeling about the country and our feeling about the country is there's a restlessness there, and you've just expressed it in Malton. There's a restlessness there, there's a sense that things aren't quite right. Whichever side of the argument you were on Brexit, the fact that 17.4 million people voted to leave the common market, as I call it, the common market, the European Union, shows you that there's a profound sense of restlessness in Britain. And we want to Labour is trying to give expression to that, as well as all those people who voted for Remain. But many people voted for Remain were also motivated by the idea they didn't want to follow people like Farage, extreme right-wingers who wanted to, you know, be xenophobic and hate foreigners and all the other stuff that Farage voted for. We think there's a restlessness in the country because the direction of the country which it's been going has not been working for most working people. I'll give you one set of figures. There are 33 million people who work for a living in our country, whether wages or salaries. Their income has gone down by £400 billion. And the richest 1,000 people have seen their wealth increase by just over £400 billion, the same amount. This in 10 years. Wow. This massive shift in wealth from the nation through to the handful of the richest people. And so, I think the point you made about giving a lead, saying the country's got to change direction, you cannot go on in this old way anymore, it just isn't working, is absolutely the right thing to do. But I do speak to Jeremy a lot. I was the first MP to nominate Jeremy because I knew that the country had to change, and so did our party. And I'll speak to him, I'll tell him what you said, it's very encouraging. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming. And yeah, it's been a bit parky, but hopefully it's been worth it.